Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
Behaviorally, when we talk about the Senior Warden, we're talking about the sort of evaluative capacity and design intent to close, to conclude effort, to stop working, to effectively say job's done. And so when we look at how that works for us as individuals, oftentimes we run afoul of some very kind of, I would say, easy and obvious things if we're not careful. First things first, if we never define what the outcome is we're trying to work towards, we never get to done. So when you're experiencing difficulties in your life, it makes sense before you, before you start, if you can, to essentially define what you're trying to do. I realize that sounds in some ways absurd, but a lot of our effort is really just kind of cast into the void, as it were. We try and do stuff thinking it's going to solve the problem, but we don't really have a meaningful understanding of the intervening sort of milestones or waypoints in between where we're going to conduct that evaluative perspective. We're going to stop and say, this part of the work is done, or this segment is complete, or, adding additional polish to this part of this project isn't going to move the needle. And it is, maybe I'm using the lack of closure as a way to essentially, avoid moving forward. A lot of stuff like this happens psychologically, kind of below your levels of conscious awareness. So when you're trying to figure out how to suss this stuff out, taking an inventory of the stuff you're doing on a daily basis, taking an inventory of the work that you're doing, what you've kind of accomplished and achieved, what remains to be done. Those are all big steps that you can use to essentially arm yourself as the Senior Warden to move the conversation forward to a place of safe and meaningful closure. When you're closing, understand too that when you say, look, I'm going to stop working on this, or this part is done, whatever that might be, understand that it's just a part. You may change perspectives. You may switch to a different set of work. You may move from one area of essentially weakness to an area of strength. You may not be able to solve the problem in the way you had originally intended. So you have to close that effort, close that line of inquiry, as it were, and move to the next. And this is all A-OK stuff, right? So no judgment, no sort of difficulty here. A lot of folks will take that fear of failure, for example, and use that to avoid closing a bit of activity, whatever that might be. When in fact, you're essentially throwing away a lot of meaningful effort that you could be applying towards the next task, the next goal, the next objective as you move forward. Even if those objectives, and we've discussed this before, even if those objectives aren't sort of overly well defined, you can, in the process of discovery, identify the kind of line of demarcation. Okay, so when I get to this part, I'm going to stop, kind of recenter, figure out where I'm at, and then move forward. This stopping function, this concluding function from a behavioral perspective of the Senior Warden is something that a lot of folks tend to avoid. But it really does give you a strong sense of, I can put that stuff out of my mind. I can put it out of my emotional sort of bandwidth. I can take that stuff off the table so I can move forward as opposed to lingering because I don't want things to change or because I don't know what to do next. So don't let kind of fear and ambiguity drive you to a lack of closure with the stuff that you're working on.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone, and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com, and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.